Hello and welcome to the Spotlight podcast. I'm joined today by the wonderful Noor. So, Noor, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast episode. Noor, give us a little introduction to who you are.
Thank you so much for having me. So, I'm Noor. I'm the self-dubbed systems girl over on LinkedIn, and I am a consultant, systems enthusiast. And I guess if I could sum up kind of what I do, I work with solo founders, CEOs, entrepreneurs, and I help them turn their businesses into a business that feels good.
Sounds great. Sounds like a very worthy mission. Um, However, working by yourself can also cause some challenges. You're especially vocal about how lonely working for yourself can be. So, how have you experienced that loneliness?
It's a really interesting question, and it's something that I've been thinking about a lot recently. So I'm naturally very, very introverted. I like working alone, and so when I moved into the online space, um, 5.5, 6 years ago now, I was like, oh, this is amazing. I get to work from like my own home. I never have to go to an office. This is so great. And it is great in a lot of ways. And I obviously enjoy it, which is why I've continued to work in this capacity. But it can feel a little lonely. And for me, I would say the best way to, I guess, articulate how this shows up is there is a lot of noise in my head. And if you don't have someone to kind of chat through the things that are going on in your head, all my friends have very conventional jobs. My partner has a very conventional 9 to 5 job. And so you can feel a little bit disconnected at times, and like, it doesn't necessarily make sense to kind of share certain things because it's quite hard to relate unless you're in, a very similar situation. And I guess for me, I've found a lot of comfort in LinkedIn over the last 13 months now, in meeting people and connecting with different people who are in similar situations and also not so similar, but kind of operate online and, work remotely and work, in different parts of the world and have team members, in different parts of the world. So LinkedIn for me has been a massive blessing in making me feel not so lonely.
That's really nice to hear. I've experienced something similar
Mm.
with online communities like Pretty Little Marketer, which I know you're also part of.
Yes.
But I guess that leads me on to my next question, which is like in this online world that can often come across as like really shouty and you have to put yourself out there and like you have to almost market yourself. Like, how do you marry that with being introverted?
That is something that I still, if I'm being honest, struggle with. Being introverted, I won't generalize, I'll speak for myself. Um, it can feel, really scary, to put it really, really simply. And there was a lot of fear when I first started out. So I've been working online and in business for 5.5, 6 years now, but I've been behind the scenes up until 13 months ago. And when I set out on my own, I knew that I had to step into the light and now be front facing. And that was really, really, really scary. So for me, what made it easier is I knew that if I was going to do this and it was going to be something long term, I had to find a way to do it and it work for me. So I looked at all the platforms available, and LinkedIn was the one that felt the most organic for me. I have a literature and philosophy background. My first degree was in literature and philosophy, and so I've always loved written text and I love writing, and so that felt like a really natural thing to gravitate to versus something like Instagram, which is more I use the word artificial, and I don't mean that in a super negative way, but everything is super polished. It's a real snapshot of an image or a 30-second video, and I find it really difficult to be authentic and genuine and not succumb to the pressures of you've got zero point 0.3 seconds to capture someone's attention, so this hook has to be, formatted in this way. And of course, there's an element of that in LinkedIn. and copywriting as a whole. But I I guess I knew that I had to be really careful, and if I was going to do it, I had to do it my way and not, necessarily follow the LinkedIn gurus and, what the platform teaches through the LinkedIn gurus. And I guess I've been really lucky that people have resonated with the stuff that I put out there. So it's easier now. It's definitely like a muscle that gets easier the more you exercise, the more you flex it. But I I try not to fixate on the numbers, because if I look at the numbers, then it can get a bit scary and panicky when you see how many eyes are on you. I guess I just take it step by step and not kind of like zoom out too much. And that for me has been really, really helpful. I feel like you're pushed to Instagram, at least in my space. Instagram is like, the thing that everyone talks about. And now we've got Substack, which is really taking off. And, it's something that a lot of people are starting to talk about, and longer form written content. So, Threads has its own thing going on. Like that, there is a lot out there. So I think just taking the time to look at the platforms and figure out what makes you excited, even if it's not like the most mainstream, and then carve out your little corner of the internet. And I think if you're able to do that, and you are able to do it from a place of this is really exciting and I'm going to enjoy this, then you'll be able to do it for much longer.
Cool. So you did mention online about hitting a wall about 10 months into starting for yourself. Looking back, what was the clearest signal that something wasn't working?
I think if I could bottle it down to one thing, and this, I don't know how helpful this is going to be. It was probably a feeling that I got over a period of time. So, we experience different things on a day-to-day basis, and I think it's important to take those things, those feelings, with a pinch of salt, because, we have our ups and downs, and things happen in the day, and you feel one way, the following day because of something that happened, or if you get a message, or something doesn't work with a client. And there are lots of ups and downs in the journey. But for me, I guess it was um, just a feeling of tiredness. And I guess I was trying to distract myself, is what I found. So it was this feeling of I'm really trying to avoid thinking about certain things. And I found myself scrolling on social media a lot, which as someone who doesn't like social media very much, that for me is always a little bit of a warning sign. So I'm like, what is it that I'm trying to avoid by engaging in this, endless scrolling? And I think it was around end of November time where I was like, maybe this is something that I'm going to have to carve out some space to really unpack. And I was lucky that I took some time over the Christmas, New Year period to really kind of reflect and look at my first year in like entrepreneurship, I guess, and look at the coming year and what I wanted to do, and what I was, afraid to look at. And I gave myself a lot of space, and did a lot of writing, and I left London as well. My sister lives in Cheltenham, so I was able to go there for 3 weeks almost, and just take walks in the countryside, and it was very, very nice. And I just came back and I felt a lot more aligned and a lot clearer on the coming year, and who I wanted to work with, and what I wanted to achieve, and what was important. And I think the biggest thing for me was what I wanted my day to day and my life to look like this year, and what needed to happen in order for me to get there. And I started putting those things into motion. And very quickly, I felt that weight kind of lift, and I went through the wall and now feel, a lot better, even though it's only been 2 weeks. The difference has been pretty monumental. And I've had people say to me as well, like, oh, your energy feels so different. I started working with a coach. I had my first session with him 2 weeks ago, and we did our like chemistry read in December. And he opened with, you feel your energy feels really different. And I was like, oh, it's funny you mentioned that because, and then we kind of got into everything. But yeah, to answer your question, it was that avoidance and looking at my behavior of avoidance and figuring out, oh, like this is usually what happens when I need to sit down and work through a few things.
Um, what I'm hearing is like it's always good to take some distance and to do a little reset. So I know we touched upon this a little bit, but what does your definition of success look like? Because you said you try not to look at the numbers because you know I do it too, right? I say I don't look at the numbers. How does that work for you? Like when do you feel satisfied? All right, and we're back. Sorry about that. Had some sound issues. So we're just talking about your definition of success.
Yeah, so it is really difficult, and I try really hard not to look at, the impressions of certain metrics. I've definitely gotten to a place where I don't see that as success. I think if I'm really happy with what I've written, then whether it performs well or does not perform well, I'm fine with it as long as I'm putting out stuff that I am really happy with and I feel like is helpful and reflective of, what's going on or what I'm trying to communicate. Success is an interesting one, and it's something that feeds into the work that I do with the people that I get to work with, CEOs, entrepreneurs, freelancers. And I think that a lot of people get stuck because they're chasing an arbitrary measure of success. So in the corporate world, maybe it's a job title. In the world of entrepreneurship, maybe it's a revenue target. Maybe it's hustle life, which, is so big on the internet and in socials. And for me, one of the things that I do when I speak to clients or I'm just having conversations with, interesting people is ask them what success looks like for them. And usually I get a revenue number. And I'm like, no, I'm not asking about a metric. I'm asking about what success looks like for you day to day. What does it feel like? And that's what I've applied to my own life. So for me, it's having the freedom to work with who I want to work. And if that means that it's being able to say no to work that comes my way because it doesn't align, I don't, gel with the person. That for me is huge. And being in that position to go, actually, I'm good. And this doesn't really work, or the scope of work isn't something that really excites me that I really want to take on. And being able to, in the middle of the day, be like, you know what, my brain isn't working. I'm just going to head off for a few hours. Being able to work from, wherever I want. I don't have to go into an office. So it looks different for everyone. And what my version of success looks like, may not be someone else's version of success. But I think the first step for me is being really honest with oneself about what does that look like for you, because it's different and it's specific to, each individual. And then being really, really honest, because most of us have this knee-jerk response to that question. And it's like, okay, but, if that is what success looks like, why? What does that provide you with? What does that give you, your family, your circumstances? And then usually that gives you more to work with. If it's a specific revenue goal, maybe I had a client that I worked with recently who wanted to pay off their parents' mortgage. And that was like a huge thing. So they were like, I, want to hit this revenue goal because I have this dream of being able to like give back to my family. And I was like, well, that's powerful. That's the goal. It's not, the actual number. It's like what sits behind the number, the reason why. So for me, that's, I guess, what I kind of keep at the forefront of my mind. And I have a journal which I write everything in. And the first page of my journal for 2026 is some of those measures of success for me. Like, what do my days feel like? What do I spend my time doing with who? Where do I get to focus my attention? What are the
activities that I'm doing on a day-to-day, weekly, monthly basis, brands that I want to work with, like all of this stuff. So yeah, I think a lot of people don't think deeply enough about it because we're like on this wagon of chasing, success. And I wanted to be a lawyer for my whole life. So I was like, I just want to be a lawyer. And there wasn't really a reason behind that. I was just, I was told that that was, I'd get so much respect and it'd be amazing and I'd have all this money and it's such a cool profession. And my best friend in the whole world is a lawyer. And I look at her life and I'm like, oh my God, this is insane. Like, I don't think I could have done that. So, yeah, that's what I would say.
Oh, that's a really good answer. Thank you so much for that. And I would say writing things down really helps. Like I started journaling literally this year, so I'm still a
Okay.
newbie, but it's already helped me put things into perspective because it's so often that we're chasing the next thing and the next thing. And like when you've hit that one metric, you're like, okay, let's set the next one, where you rarely stop and look back to reflect on how far you've come. Well, if you have your goals written down, you can always look back and be like, actually, yeah, I'm already halfway there, or like I've already made progress towards this goal. And yeah, you so often forget because in the online world, everything is just changing all the time. You don't have
Right.
that set place to come back to.
Right. I love that you've started journaling. I used to think, oh, like it's very woo-woo, but I just think there's so much value in it. And it's what I turn to first when I need clarity. It's like sit down, pen and paper, and I just write whatever's in my head. And often I come away from that feeling a lot better.
Yeah, there's something about it that makes you slow down as well. Like typing is so immediate,
Yeah.
while writing is so, I don't know. Yeah, there's something magical about it.
Yeah. Well,
But coming back to your self-created name, the Systems Girl, how do you achieve the balance between systems and structure and that freedom where creativity thrives?
yeah. Um, that is such a good question because a lot of people feel repelled by systems because they think that it inhibits freedom and creativity specifically. But what I've always found, and when I've applied this to myself, but also the many, many entrepreneurs that I've worked with over the years, is that structure actually supports freedom. And without some form of structure, it's almost impossible within the context of business and the online world to achieve true creativity and freedom. So I had this conversation with a CEO a few months back where I asked him to pull up his calendar because he said that he didn't have any time. So I was like, let's have a look. Let's see where your time is going. And he pulled up his calendar and I just saw meetings scattered everywhere. And I was like, okay, so you're saying you don't have time, but do you know where your time is going? He was like, well, I'm doing this, and I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. I'm like, okay, so run me through a typical day. And he said to me, this is someone who wants to write a book, by the way. So he said to me, okay, so I my alarm goes off at like 5:30, and then I check Slack in bed, and then I check my emails, and then I go to the gym, and then I am in Slack and emails, and then I jump on a client call, and then I have a sales call, and then I check Slack and emails, and then I try to do some writing, but I'm checking Slack and emails. And I was like, okay, I was like, so you say your big goal is to write, but you don't have this protected space and this container for you to have that freedom and to have the creativity that you need when you write. He was like, yeah. I was like, okay, so what if we put a 2 hour block on Monday first thing? I want you to get out of bed, don't check your phone, just go to your screen and just start writing. I'm like, or go to a cafe, like whatever works best for you, but just 2 hours uninterrupted. And then you check your Slack and your emails. He's like, oh no, I need to check the Slack and the emails. And I'm like, what is it? What is so urgent that you need to check it right away? He was like, oh, because, my team needs me for this, my team needs me. for that. And I'm like, if your team cannot operate without you for a few hours in the morning, you've got a big problem. But I try to explain to my audience and this wonderful CEO that I've been working with that if you wake up in a reactive state, and that is whether we want to or not, that is what Slack, that is what WhatsApps, that's what emails put us into, because they're communication platforms and communication is coming at you with the intent for you to do certain things. So your team is saying, hey, I have this issue, I need help. Emails coming at you saying, hey, we have this thing going on, can you send us this, blah, blah, blah. So immediately your brain goes, I have to do all these things. If we're not proactive about protecting that freedom and that creative space, it's not going to happen. So a lot of entrepreneurs fear structure because they feel like it puts constraints on them. And it does, but in the best possible way. It means that we can protect the things that are most important to us. And that's something that feels like very uncomfortable, because I won't get into like the psyche of the entrepreneur too much, but I think that a lot of people turn to entrepreneurship and they like the feeling of being needed. And I think it's really uncomfortable to put things into place where you now know you're not needed. And then you have this question of, what do you do? Where do you spend your time when you're not needed to come in and put out all these fires? Entrepreneurs say that they get into this for freedom, and then they do everything they can to not have the freedom. So it's this like weird, paradox that we see everywhere. But yeah, I think that's the biggest misconception, that systems inhibit freedom. It's the opposite. They are what enable it in the best possible way. Yeah. So I'm a huge fan. I've noticed, the CEOs that I've worked with closely, that I've implemented structures for, now spend their time doing the things that they're really, really good at and operate from a place of proactiveness rather than reactivity, which is amazing. And when you can do that, like the things that happen as a result of that are incredible, and you experience growth and your central nervous system feels good for once. And, all these great things happen. So it's obviously something I'm really passionate about. It's the main part of what I do.
Well, that's really great. I've never thought about it from that angle, so thanks a lot for the insight. It reminds me of a quote actually that I don't know who it's from or where it came from or who told me it, but it sticks in my head. It's like, you don't have time, you make time. I think my husband quoted it to me once, and then it stuck with me ever since, because he says, I hate it when people say I'm too busy. It's that you're never too busy, you're just not prioritizing the thing. Like, if you valued it, you would make time for it.
Yeah, I love that. So I was telling my partner, actually, I think yesterday, said to me, I was like, oh, should we go to the gym? And he went, oh no, I don't have the time, I'm busy. And he went, I know what you're going to say. It's not that I'm busy, I just have other things that are more important. But yeah, I completely agree. We make time for the things that are important to us. And the reality is, if we are not making the time, then those things, we don't value them as much as we think we do.
Yeah, no, very wise. So, when it comes to you, right, how do you see your future?
That's such a big question. How I see my future. My 2026 for me is the year that I really want to just focus on getting my message out to more people. It's a really big goal, and I by no means think that it's going to happen in 2026 and I'm going to finish it. I think this is like a lifelong project, but I want 2026 to be the year that this is where my attention goes, getting this message out to more people, because I think that we have been taught to work in a way that I don't think serves us. And I want people to be really intentional with how they think about their work within the context of their life and how they go about life and work. And I just think that most people are not. And I think the world will be a happier and a better place to be in if we can all work and live more intentionally. I want to write a lot more. I started a Substack at the end of December because, there's a max like character count on LinkedIn, and sometimes I found towards the end of the year that my posts were, I just didn't have the space to kind of say what I wanted to say. So I started a longer form version of LinkedIn, and I want to continue, putting that out and getting that out to more people and doing more, amazing things like this with people like you.
From what you've been saying, it's become really important to find that intentionality in both work and life. And what I've seen is like a trend of like it's not work-life balance anymore because it's really hard nowadays, especially in online, to separate the two. So I think it's more about less about a balance between two things, but more about streamlining a kind of like red thread goes through both of them or something. Like I don't know how exactly to word it, but like that, your values and how you live, what is important to you and what you care about, and those kinds of things just permeate like both your personal life and your professional life in a way.
Yeah, no, I think you articulated that really well. I think for me, I grew up hearing about work-life balance. And for me, I get really caught up on words, perhaps because of my background in literature, and I love reading, and words for me are really important. So I'm like always reading between the lines. So for me, work-life balance always felt a little odd because, like, can it be in balance? Like, if you have a young child, does it make sense for your work life to, you know, be 50-50? Like, and then I don't know, if you're gearing up for a big campaign or, closing a deal or a new launch or something that, surely your personal life is going to, get tuned down and your work life's going to. So it never really resonated. And then in the entrepreneur world, you hear about work-life integration. And for me, I never resonated with, if anything, I was like, this feels very off because essentially it's a hidden way of saying you can never switch off. Like your work has to be integrated with your life. And I was made to feel that if I wasn't constantly available, I wasn't as serious as other people and I didn't love my work as other people. And I was like, this isn't just not true. But I felt really ashamed to say, oh, I want to take a holiday. It's like, oh, but why would you take a holiday when you can just take your laptop and be on the beach and work? And I was like, because I want to read my fiction, like my novel, I want to sit on the beach and just be on the beach. And I want to be with my partner at dinner and not be picking up my phone and staring at Slack. And so for me, that never really worked. And then I had this like light bulb moment in December of 2025, so very recently, where I read a book, and the book is Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport, who is a professor of computer science in the United States at some prestigious university. And his work is amazing. He's written another book called Deep Work, and I'm a big fan. And this book basically made me think about work-life separation. It's not something that the book like pushes or preaches or even really talks about explicitly, but I started having this idea of work-life separation. And I thought, if I can create containers for rest, my loved ones, my work, myself, surely I can give more. If when I'm doing this and I'm here and I'm not somewhere else and I don't have notifications, popping up, surely I can be more present and you get more from me. And if when I'm spending time with my partner at dinner and we're having dinner together and we're talking, we can really connect without our connection being interrupted by notifications or thoughts in my head. And so I started to think about work-life separation and how to put that into practice in my own life and how to start being able to articulate what that is and try get this message out. And I do think it's the best way. And of course, it's not always feasible and it's not easy. But I do think that, at least for me, this is something that I've been practicing for since the start of January now. And I just feel like I've been able to show up in every aspect of my life for myself for my loved ones, for my clients, for my audience, in ways that I'm really, really proud. Like I finished the day and I'm like, I'm really proud of today and how I showed up and what I gave to each thing. And, you know, I get 8 hours of sleep a night. I know you have, I think you have young kids. Wow. So maybe the 8 hours of sleep is not for you yet, but I don't have kids. So for me, 8 hours is, you know, I can do that. And I am very present in my work and I work very hard. But I also have dinner with my partner every night and there's like no phones. So for me, this is, yeah, this is something that I feel very strongly about. And I don't know if the space is ready for this notion of work-life separation. I know that we've all been really hardwired to, you know, think of work-life integration or work-life balance, but I think that there are a lot of people that are ready for this, but they're maybe scared to admit that this is something that they want because of the same things I felt, which is you're not serious enough, you don't want it as much, you're not working as hard. But we're humans, we're not robots, we're not meant to work 24 hours, 7 days a week. We need meaningful connection, we need rest, and we shouldn't feel ashamed to say that we want those things as well.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. It's just this makes me think of all the social media girlies, you know, especially the ones in PLM that are always saying like it's really hard for me to separate the two because I work in social media and so I have to be on social media all the time and it's draining me. Like, how can I manage that? Like, what advice would you give?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. My job is not social media. I am on social media for a purpose. And I think it's really important to get that clear. So I don't have now, this is a new thing. I'm not on social media for fun. I would rather read a book. I would rather go to the gym. I would rather go to ballet. I would rather do other things. That's not fun for me. And I think it has a lot of really negative impacts on my mental health. I don't like sitting and comparing myself, and I'm a lot more critical about myself. I'm a lot happier off social media. I use business media. I have intentional time on social media to do and achieve certain things. And I think that's really, really important. This is going to get so much hate, but like, this is what I've done. So I'm going to share what has helped me. Um, and this is really, really extreme. I appreciate it's really, really extreme, but I think these apps are designed to steal our attention, and like the amount of engineers and product designers and, you know, funding that goes into making these apps what they are so that they can steal our attention. I'm not going to pretend to be able to compete with that, and I don't think anyone else should. So I think we need to be really open and honest about acknowledging that. First of all, I removed the apps from my phone because I can still access them on my desktop, on my laptop. It's not that I don't have them. It's just I don't want, and you'll notice this, iPhone has this feature, everyone has it, it's like the screen time, where it tells you how many times you pick up your phone, not how many times you unlock it and you go on an app, how many times our knee-jerk reaction is to go, oh, do we have notifications? No. Okay. And if you look at that number, it's actually mortifying. And I started looking at these numbers and I was like, this is insane. Like, how much time I'm spending on my phone is not okay. So I removed all the apps from my phone. I still have Instagram, I still have TikTok. They're on my desktop. So in my calendar, I put like ideating time, where I go and I look at specific accounts and I'm like, what is happening? You know, I need to get ideas, whatever it is. But I think the important part is that that is something that is intentional. It's not, I'm gonna in bed do some work. Why are you doing work in bed? And we call it work and then we're like, oh yeah, we're just researching, it's fine. But I think we have to be really honest with ourselves. If it's something that you are struggling with, make your life easier, like get them off your phone. For me, I tried everything. I have a brick, which like blocks my phone. You can unbrick your phone, you just have to stand up and go. So that worked for a while. And then I tried, you can like block apps on an iPhone and I'm sure Android, and that works until a message pops up and you go unblock. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, we have to make things as easy for ourselves as we can. So I think if you're struggling, remove them, get them on your laptops. You can still access them. And then I also think this idea of missing out is something that, I'll be honest, I don't understand because I've never experienced that. Like, if I don't want to do something, I don't really care what it, like, everyone could be doing it. And I'm like, I don't want to do it, so it's fine. But I appreciate the survival thing. We want to be part of the group. For me, it's more important the things that I'm losing out in real life, because social media is not real life. Like, if I'm at the theater with my friends and my friend is telling me something and I have notifications popping off, I'm missing out on like real connection with her. And that's not okay with me. So I think just taking a step back. And if anyone needs help, there's a documentary on Netflix called The Social Dilemma. And but I remember watching that documentary and just being like, that's terrifying. It's all the big apps, developers at Meta, at, whatever, and it's their thoughts on the apps. And there's a reason why none of these people let their kids have these apps and none of them have the app. Like, that is that should tell us that there's something not quite right about these things. And I think it's really scary. And I do think people should, I'm not here to like, incite fear, but I do think that it is quite worrying how we are using technology. I'm not a technophobe. I think tech is great. I love tech. But I think that there's something really worrying about how we're using it, social media specifically, and how younger generations are using it. Like, that really scares me when I see kids out or people on dates and they're just staring at their phones and they haven't looked up once. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going on? Like, how do we stop this? Yeah, so I could go on and on for forever about this, but hopefully that's a little bit helpful to anyone who's struggling. I think putting those boundaries in place, and sometimes they have to be more aggressive because of how these apps are designed. But I promise you're happier. You will be happier because of it. It's so scary. And I'm more than happy to speak and support anyone along the way because I'm obviously very passionate about it.
No, great answer. I don't think you get any hate for this because I think people deep down they know they're struggling. Like, otherwise they wouldn't express it that way. Like, right, how do I get out of this, hell loop of like socials, work, socials, like socials for work, socials not for work. So really helpful. And for sure we'll drop all your links and all your recommendations in the description of the video. And yeah, I think we've come to my last kind of section where I would invite you to just share one last thought or plug, what you offer and everything. Just this is your space, so just say whatever you want to say.
Thank you. One last thought. I would say my last thought is in a digital world and in a world where there is so much noise, there is increasing value in finding space to think and reflect and tune into yourself and what's going on and how you feel, and be really, really honest with yourself about what things look like, what you're happy with, what you're not happy with, what you can change if you're not happy with something. And I think that's something that has always really, really helped me, even though you have, things coming at you left, right, and center, people telling you that you should do this or you should operate in this way or work in this way. And we all get to choose to varying degrees for ourselves what our lives look like, what our work lives look like, again, to varying degrees. And I don't think we should take that lightly. I think we should take that really, really seriously. Nothing to plug, just that I will continue sharing my messages on LinkedIn. So more than happy for anyone to connect and to have further conversations about this and to be challenged. I'm very, very happy for people to push back, to go, oh, I don't quite agree with this. I love having those interactions. They're really, really important to me. And I think we can get to really interesting places when the door is open for communication with people who might not have, the same views, but be curious about why I've come to certain ideas, through my own journey. So yeah, door is always open, and the best place to find me is LinkedIn.
All right. Well, that wraps this episode of the podcast up. And I'd really like to thank you, Noor, for coming on the podcast. It's been such a valuable session. And yeah, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I've had so much fun and yeah, really, really enjoyed the chat. So thank you.
Thanks.